It's Alex from the American Guitar Academy. I'm here today with Mr. Pete Thorn. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, I mean, how are you finding Japan so far? Because I know you like it here.
Oh, I love it.
It's great. It's awesome. That's why I came here myself. So.
Yeah. How long have you been here?
I've been here for about 9 months, since January this year.
Okay.
And teaching, gigging, and performing, and doing lots of fun things. So what I wanted to do today is to, like we do with a lot of other interviews, is we just keep it as two guys having a coffee and talking about guitars and stuff.
Sounds good to me.
So I don't want to spend too long talking about how you started, but maybe you could give us a quick, brief biographical.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Edmonton, Canada, and started playing guitar when I was about 10 or so. And I think I just said about. That was my Canadian coming out.
Well, we had Nick Johnson last week, and he's Canadian as well. So we're used to the Canadians. That's all good.
Yeah, I know Nick a little bit. I met him in Germany at a YouTube guitar event. But grew up in Canada and ended up at 19 going down to Los Angeles to attend GIT, Musicians Institute. So I went to GIT and did the full year there. And then after that, I just started playing in original bands and writing songs, learning about recording, learning about sort of what it took also to just sort of be a professional musician and playing in cover bands, teaching lessons, whatever I could do to make ends meet. And actually around 1995 or 96, after writing about 50 songs with a band and just working super duper hard, we actually got signed here.
Okay.
So my career kind of, as a professional musician, kind of started in Japan. I mean, it was really the Japanese deal. It was a division of Sony called Double O that signed us. And it was kind of interesting because it was like an American band, but our singer was born in Japan and was half Japanese and could speak perfect Japanese. So American band singing in Japanese.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, it was
that's the ideal situation for the market, I guess.
And so I come over here and I actually sort of fall in love with this place around 1995, 1996, and I just I was like, wow, this place is amazing. I just really bonded with it. Well, after about a year, the record came out, and nothing ended up happening with it, and then I was dejected, and it's like, oh, because I thought I was going to have this whole career in Japan, maybe States, Japan. Yeah. Didn't end up happening, but so I got my first taste of Japan then, and that was really it's been a lifelong thing since then. Just kind of a love for Japan. After that, I started playing in various other bands and started doing sort of like sideman work as well. So in Los Angeles, I found some inroads into people that could help me get gigs on tours as a touring sideman. So it started kind of climbing my way up, from smaller bands to bigger artists. So probably the first gig I would say that was really like, oh, this is quite a step up, in notoriety and whatnot, was a band called Five for Fighting. They have a song called Superman, another one called 100 Years, another one called The Riddle, some hits throughout the early 2000s. And so that band was kind of taking off, doing quite well, and I joined around 2001 and started touring with them. And all of a sudden I was, on a bus and performing on, late night television shows and all that kind of stuff. And it felt like, oh, things are improving. Now, ironically, I've recently rejoined John Andrazik from Five for Fighting, and I've been playing with him since about 2022, and doing summer tours with him. So it's really nice because I've made that connection all the way
it's
back.
like full circle, man.
Yeah, 20 years. So I'm currently playing with them sometimes. But after that, I started playing with different artists, Robbie Draco Rosa and Jewel, and then I joined Chris Cornell's band around 2007. 2007 to 10, I was with Chris Cornell, playing with him. And around that time, I decided to make a solo record as well. So 2011, it was released. I'd been recording for years at home, kind of getting into doing my own thing, writing songs and learning how to engineer. And so around 2011, I released the Guitar Nerd album. And that for me was like a huge step, because up till that point, the touring sideman thing was really the way I was earning an income. And sort of, if anybody knew me, that's what I was known for. Well, putting out an album with my own name on it, and also at the same time coinciding with YouTube.
Yeah, that as well.
Yeah, starting to do YouTube, and that building is, now I had my own thing. And so it was really a grounding thing for me, because I could do exactly what I wanted to. This was me expressing my music as I wanted it to be, heard. And then I think something can happen sometimes with folks in the sort of sideman end of the game, where a lot of their personality can get tied up in their personal worth as a musician, maybe in the gig they have. So you can get a better and better gig, and that's great, but what happens if that gig ends? And they always do. It can be devastating, or at least a setback where you feel like, oh, now I got to get another gig. And you're also always relying on someone else for your income, and it's all about their time and their schedule when they're going to put out a record, maybe go on tour, and so doing my own album and also starting to build my thing that I do on YouTube, which if anybody's watching this is probably how you know me, it's from YouTube. That was just really beneficial and really grounding, really good for my soul. And then I found, ironically, it allowed me to relax more in the sideman end of things, where I wasn't tying up all my identity and worth, and maybe there was an ego thing involved in it. I was able to let that go to a great degree. So I felt like I was more effective then in my role as a sideman. So all these things through, say, from 2009, 2010 on, YouTube, solo career with records, and also still doing the sideman work and everything, that's continued, and it's all kind of, I've got my eggs in many baskets, I guess.
Yes. I think that's something you need to do, and especially in this day and age, is to have loads of different things that are going on. You can't, as you said, you can't really rely on one. So,
that's right.
Moving on. So, I think I found some of your videos many years ago, and then it was through. So I'm a big Guthrie fan, and at the time Guthrie was playing Sir, and I was looking at Sir guitars, and then I found some of the things that you were doing with Sir as well. So, and I brought my Sir along as well because we can. But why Sir guitars? Because you played so many.
Yeah.
So what drew you to working with Sir and closely with John, I imagine?
Yeah. Well, we just really became great friends. First of all, that was a huge thing. But I'll tell you the story of my first Sir guitar. Much like you, I bought secondhand. It was a very similar guitar to yours. It was a Classic S. Didn't have EMGs or Floyd. It was their pickups and a standard bridge. But otherwise, basically the same spec as this, I believe. Alder body and maple neck, rosewood fingerboard, very much like this. And I bought it sight unseen. It came all the way across the country to me in the U.S.
On eBay or?
Actually, off the gear page.
On the forum.
Yeah, on the forum. Yeah, and I saw somebody selling it, so I bought it privately like that.
Yeah.
Shipped it across the country. It came to me. I opened up the case, and this is about 2004 or 5. And I opened the case, and it looks beautiful. I pulled it out of the case, and I started playing it. 45 minutes later, I was still playing, and I was like, man, this guitar is great. Like, it felt really good. And then I realized I'd never tuned it. Out of the case, I pulled it out, and it was like playing, big chords, and it was like, it's in tune. It's perfectly in tune. I didn't tune it coming out of the case. So it's still in tune after 45 minutes of playing, and it came across the country in tune. I'm like, this is a really good guitar.
Yeah, I had when I came to Japan, I shipped. All my other guitars were shipped on a container, and they took 3 months to arrive. But I brought the number 1 with me on the plane.
Yeah.
And it was in tune when I got to the apartment and I opened up. It's fine.
So similar.
Exactly, no problem at all. It stayed really in tune. A question I had, because I've never been fortunate enough to see one, but I've seen a lot of pictures of the Sir Aura.
Oh yeah.
The Les Paul thing. What is the main differences between that and the conventional G-type?
Well, once again, tuning. That's the biggest one. It's amazing. Well, John, so John basically, this kind of, I'll tie this into your first question, which is why Sir. But got that first guitar, and it was amazing. I loved it, and used it for a long time. Then I go out and I meet them out at the factory, because it's just east of LA a little bit, out in east and south of it, in Lake Elsinore. Drove out, met them. Very nice people. Got a great sense from John right away that he was all about the right stuff, which is like quality, improving things, always kind of pushing forward, and fixing any problems that on it.
Yeah, I get the sense he won't let anything slide. It has to be right. There's no that'll do.
Exactly. He'll look at it. I got a guitar from someone else once, a great guitar. I love it. It's a custom-made guitar, but I was really happy about it when I got it. It was a Les Paul style, like a
single cut type thing.
Single cut type thing. And I got it, and I took it out, and I go, check it out, and I handed it to him, and he looks at it, and he takes it, and he's holding it, and he's looking at it like this, and he goes, want me to tell you what's wrong with it? We have that as a running joke. You want me to tell you what's wrong with it as a running joke, like, because he just sees things like other people can't, lines, problems, issues, and his mind works in such a way that he just wants to fix all those things. And that's what's most important. Not making money, not, it's this desire to make things great and it to be perfect, because he's just that, that's the way his mind works. and so I really bonded with that because I like quality things, I like nice things, I like things that work well. So that we just hit it off. He's a funny guy too, and he's a sweet guy. He's very giving, and so we became good friends. Now, and then relationships just carried on with amps and everything after that. Amps, guitars, and it's just we're just in sync. You know, it's not like we don't argue about things. Sometimes we do, or things, but he's generally right.
you kind of got to trust him for the most part of stuff, especially with, I mean, with amps and pedals. I choose to kind of stay a little bit ignorant with like the tubes and the capacitors and stuff, and I trust someone like him to deal with it.
Yeah.
I know the guitar because I'm touching it. I know what feels right to me, but with the amps and stuff, I'll let the expert deal with it.
And he definitely is. I've learned a lot from him, and we've worked close together on amps. But he's definitely he knows so much about it. So we work closely on that and fine tuning tone of amps and things, and it's interesting. But you mentioned the Aura, that guitar. So that was his basically kind of a desire to build something beautiful that echoed the classic single cut design, but also kind of fix all the problems. So one of the things would be like the fan of the strings, the headstock on the original design of those guitars, always going out of tune. The nut is extremely important to get cut just perfect on those guitars for tuning. Also the shorter scale length, I think, creates a little bit of more of a spongy, so it's not as taut as the longer scale length of a say,
a Strat
F style.
Yeah,
exactly. So so that it all can add up to a little bit of more loose tuning, I think. And he's just kind of like the way that he did the angle of the headstock as well as the fan of the strings and everything. I was cutting a solo recently for something. It was actually like my most recent YouTube video.
The Jake Ely, the Friedman IR pedal thing.
Exactly, and I played it on that guitar.
Yeah, that's what I watched that recently, and I thought, wow, so you played an Aura, so that's why I thought I'd ask about it.
No, I cut that solo. I was practicing that solo a lot for a while. Like I played it. I probably did it. I sat there and played over it for like half an hour, 40 minutes, like just playing, getting in the vibe, getting warmed up, and then I, got the take that you saw in the video. That guitar, right before I did that take, I checked the tuning, and I'd been sitting there going over that part for so long, and it was perfectly. I thought that's still the tune. I love this guitar so much. It's such a good guitar. And the one that you see me play is technically not mine. It's theirs.
Right.
It's a prototype.
Okay.
Because they only made 100 of those.
Yeah, it was very limited.
Very limited. Yeah. So it was one of the prototypes. So it belongs to Sir, but they've let me use it for a couple of years now on tour, and it's a great guitar. So they did a really nice job on it. But that's always the thing with him is just it's always that's the theme is quality, fixing any issues with classic designs. They look classic, but they also have a modern kind of original thing. The other thing with it is you'll notice the control arrangement is sort of different. It's backwards from what are normal. So the volume control is actually for
right next to where you are.
Yeah, like it would be on a Strat style guitar or something. It's like right there, so you can do volume as well as the pinky.
Sense.
Yeah, it's a little odd getting used to if you're used to playing a guitar like that. From the company from Kalamazoo originally, but it's just backwards. But anyway.
Yeah, I'd love to play one day. I think it's what you just said. They made 100 of them.
100.
The chances of finding one in the wild is incredibly difficult.
I think 1 or 2 made it to Japan. That's it.
I have to find it in Japan. There's so many amazing guitars here that you see. Like if I'm a Chanamizu, I played. I think last week it was a 91 Valley Arts Custom Pro that they had there before the takeover and everything happened in the 90s, and that was great. And just seeing one was like, wow, I've seen it, and then they let me play it, which is great. Hopefully one day I'll see an Aura in there. That'd be quite nice.
They're really something.
Cool.
Great.
So let's with the YouTube stuff that you mentioned that you've done, countless. I can't even begin to think about how many videos you've done on different kinds of equipment, so amps and pedals and guitars and things. But there's so much stuff around. Do you have any advice for people that they want to get some new gear? They don't really know where to start if they want a drive pedal.
Well, there's so much out there as far as like, guitar players, your favorite guitar players that play on records or that are in bands, and kind of, I guess with me, I was like copying folks like that or following in their footsteps. Oh, this person uses one of these, I guess I should try it, and see if it's what I'm after. But between that and YouTube, this is sort of, I guess I'm not biased because I do them, but there's a sort of thing about YouTube demos. Oh, they're useless because everybody just makes them sound good or whatever. I don't think that's true. I think that, the general tone of of a pedal or I mean, we've got all these great, YouTube. It's an amazing resource.
Yeah,
Go
it
there.
really is. Yeah.
Yeah, not every video will be, but within 10 minutes you can go there and find 5 different ones of me and someone else and other people that plays different than me, all showing you what something sounds like, all through different amplifiers. You get a great idea these days of what something actually does.
Yeah.
And you'll probably find somebody using a similar guitar to you through a similar amp and just kind of tune in. So it's all about your ears. And I know what you mean though, like there's a lot of options and it can be like overload maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have quite a few students that are beginners and they don't have a guitar yet. They do a few lessons to see if they're comfortable enough, spending the money on the guitar. And they're like, right, I'm happy now, I'm going to go buy a guitar. And then they walk somewhere like a Channel Music, which is like heaven for us, but for them it's too much. And they have no idea what to get, and they end up coming out and then buying something on Amazon, which ends up being really terrible that they have to return anyway.
How interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I would say that it's almost, I mean, if you go into a store and you're going to get something and you've only got to say, a few $100s or the equivalent in Japanese yen to spend. I love what I've seen Fender do in the lower, like their Squire Affinity series and those guitars I think are great beginner guitars. They're much better than anything that was available to me when I was, that age. And similarly, probably the PRS or the SE.
They're pretty good.
Are really good. I mean, these are good quality instruments for beginners. Or even for intermediate level players or sometimes professionals, they can be really good instruments. Getting a good quality guitar that's got a good setup, maybe spending the extra to just make sure that a guitar technician sets it up. Going to a reputable store where get a nice setup on the guitar so that it plays out of the box great. And also maybe, if there's a student and they don't know what to get or they don't know what to do, maybe they've got a friend that's played for a while that can go and play the guitar. Oh, this one plays good because they know.
Exactly, which is I always say that there's 3 things you have to consider, which will be how it looks, how it feels, and how it sounds. And I think for an absolute beginner, I don't know if you agree, but an absolute beginner, how it sounds is important, but it's not maybe the most important because they haven't developed the skills yet.
Sure.
And how it feels, as long as it doesn't hurt them to play, then it should be okay. But as if it looks cool, and they think that they're inspired to play it when they pick it up. Every time I see this guitar, I want to play it.
I would say that's feel and look.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's 3 important things to consider. But if they are a bit worried about playing in a store where there's other people and they've only learned a few chords, then definitely taking a friend or someone would be a really good idea. Really good idea.
Somebody that's got a little more experience, and because it's a big, even if it's your first guitar and it's not super expensive, it's still a big purchase for a lot of people. So it's just about putting a little time.
It's a big moment, exactly.
Yeah, putting a little time and effort. I'm looking over in the corner here and I'm seeing a little practice like Vox amplifier that looks like a little modeling amp. I mean, that or a little Roland.
The
cubes. I mean, the sounds these things make these days are
pretty good.
Light years beyond what I could get out of a practice amp when I started. So for $100, $200 equivalent in yen, you're gonna be able to get something that, something from Vox, something from Roland, Boss. I mean, they make great little.
The katanas are awesome.
Yeah,
they're really good.
The little black stars.
Yep, the Fly, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, that for like $75 is
really
like
good.
I've used it in hotel rooms.
And
awesome.
You can get I think the Fly comes in like you can get like an extension cab for it as well.
Really?
You can have the delay and have like a little stereo kind of thing, which is great. Which I mean, even when I was born in '96, but even when I started learning, there wasn't anything as good as that. You had the MS2. The Marshall thing that just sounded like a can of bees.
Right.
But now there's so much that sounds great. It isn't that much.
The little Yamaha THRs, all these are great products. So I think it's actually relatively easy. I mean, if you get yourself one of those Squire Affinity models and a little Vox or the little Fender Mustangs as well, those sound good. I mean, I'm not an endorser of any of these companies, I'm a sir, but these are good. I can feel good about recommending them.
Same.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they sound good. As we just said, you know, they're not a lot of money. So with you specifically, you have the amps with Sir, and and I've seen, like, if you watch any of the videos of Pete's, there's so many amps, and you've got the crazy amps which are the head switcher thing as well. But what's stopping you if you're, you know, out on the road going down the digital pathway?
Well, so I do sometimes.
Okay.
It depends. My Five for Fighting rig, which is that band that I mentioned back playing with, for a couple of years now, has been a quad Cortex running into a couple of Sir 112s via a power amp.
Yeah.
So I'll either, if I'm flying to a gig, I'll bring some little Seymour Duncan power amps. If I'm
so the power stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if I'm able to ship a little bit of gear out for a tour, I've got a rack mount matrix I've been using. So what I'm doing is I've got a little pedal board that's got a couple pedals, simple pedals on it. The quad Cortex, I'm running IRs, speaker simulation from that out to the house in stereo. And then I'm also taking two of the other outputs with no speaker simulation, going to a power amp and a couple cabinets on stage so that I can have a little amp sound. Because I could just go direct, and in the PA it would sound great, but I love the feel.
It's on stage. You have to enjoy what it is. I had but before I moved here, I had a Mesa Boogie Mark V 25.
Right.
So amazing head, but the power transformer was different compared to what you'd need in Japan.
Sure.
And I didn't want to have to spend the money and worry about potentially changing the sound of the amp by getting all the work done.
Yeah.
So I sold it and I bought a Kemper.
Okay.
Because I can just power it here, power it there. But I had the Kemper for a while before I moved, and I had a Mesa 212, and the Kemper sounded great through that. So through a real cab, that sounded awesome because it's the powered rack.
Yeah.
And then when I did a bunch of gigs with it was similar to how you did with the Cortex. So I had the cab on stage, and then I had the line out with the IR. The PA, and it sounds awesome.
Exactly the same.
And it's great for doing a live recording as well. On the subject of IRs, do you make your own?
I have in the past. I generally feel like there's so many good ones out there now that it's like between, you know, Celestion and York and Ownhammer, and there's great ones that you can get. So the rig that I'm using, much similar to your rig, you know, that's what I'll use in Five for Fighting. If I've got the option, I still use my tube amps, which is my PT15 IR from Sir or the PT100 from Sir. Still love the amps. So I sort of think this is a two-part thing. I think having speakers moving air on stage is a major part of what I like about playing guitar. The guitar and the amplifier and the speaker cabinet are all one instrument to me, and the feedback loop. And you know, done a couple clinics recently here and elsewhere, stuff where I'll show people like, well, why? Because I'll get this question: why don't you just go modeling 100%? And I'll go, well, this, and I'll lean over into the cabinet and play it, you know, and it feeds back, and I hold the note, and I go, you can't do that if you just run direct.
Exactly.
It's a two-part thing though, because you can get close, much closer, as long as you've got some cabinets moving air, even with a modeler. You know, I still love the tube amps for there's just this thing there's no latency, it's direct, it's right punchy, and you want more treble, you reach over and turn the knob that says treble on the amp, you know, it's just this thing. I love tubes, I love the old stuff, it's what I grew up with, and I feel like with the PT100, PT100 as well as the PT15, we've pushed, the PT15 was really my, you know, if somebody wanted some of the benefits of Axe Effects or Kemper or Quad Cortex, but they're a diehard tube amp person, they need something that kind of gives them some of that benefit. That's what the PT15 is, because it's got a built-in load box and impulse responses. So you can literally use it like you would a modeler. Just plug into it. Don't even need a cabinet. You know, your cabinet's optional, and then take the IRs right out to the PA. But it's a real tube amp. So we were trying to bring something to market that was like bridging that gap of traditional.
That makes, which is handy. Can you load your own IRs onto the PT15?
You can. It's very simple. It shows up like so it's got a USB port in the back. And you plug it into the computer, and it shows up with a flash drive on your.
Just drag them on.
Drag and drop.
Cool. Yeah, that's the only problem I had, because the Mark V 25 I had the Mesa cab clone built in, and I could do a similar thing, you know, speakers and PA, but you had to use what Mesa Boogie loaded in there, and there wasn't really much flexibility with it. So that was kind of one downside. So another question, something I had recently from a student, is they pulled about 10 different picks out of their pocket, and they were using a different pick for every different kind of thing they were playing.
That's interesting.
Which I was going to ask, what picks do you use, and you change that depending on what you're doing, if you're playing acoustic or just different genre?
Yeah, sometimes. So let's see if I've got one here. I probably do. Like my main pick is this, which is a Jim Dunlop. They're called Ultex. And so I like the Ultex because they last a long time, and they tend to not get, as the edges as much as they do, but not as nearly as quickly,
So yeah, I used I used Dunlop as well, but I like the sharp ones.
Oh yeah,
The
cool.
sharp ones. But recently I've discovered Pickboy. They're made in Japan. So these are wooden ones, and I was experimenting with thicker picks, but they've got a nice indent on them as well. I like that one quite a bit. But I was introduced. I prefer sharper picks. So the guitarist Alex Hutchins. Have you seen any of his stuff on YouTube?
A little bit, yeah.
He's an amazing guitar player.
Yeah.
I met him many years ago, and I was lucky enough to have a jam session with him, and he gave me a couple of picks, and I tried them out. I didn't think that I would love them because I was quite set on my Dunlop, the yellow one, .76, because I was a big Dave Mustaine fan. And I realised that actually I prefer the sharp thing, and I use that for mostly everything. If I'm playing acoustic, I'll still use a sharp, but I use a thinner one.
So but it's got a very articulate attack when you use a sharper pick. I used to use more like Jazz 3s or sometimes a sharper pick as well. That feels really good though. That's I'll have to check those out. This for me is a .73. That's a nice like middle ground.
So there's some flex to it.
Some flex and nice middle ground. I can go to acoustic on this and feel like, so for live and just for a compromise across the board, I love these. I might change it up though and use a different pick. Like sometimes when I come over here, I'll probably go buy some of the Paul Gilbert picks that are kind of like that. They're sharper and they've got kind of a sort of a round at the top, but then come to quite a point, and they just feel really good for me for that articulate kind of single string sort of playing. I've even though gone full circle all the way to like the 60 nylon, which is like what Eddie Van Halen was actually using for the last number of years, and he always kind of used mediums or thinner picks. I was like, wow, Eddie used a thin pick, really kind of thin or medium. And the deal is he had such a strong right hand attack and kind of a like, you know how sometimes if you got a heavier pick and you hit the guitar hard, the string ain't giving anymore. It's like you hit it and it just kind of like won't get any louder. It won't, and it almost.
But then the pitch will go a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
So you go with a lighter pick and you can nail it like that and get the attack of the sound and the feel in your right hand because you're playing aggressively. But the string doesn't give more, like it doesn't get pushed beyond what it's able to give. Yeah. And for Van Halen and stuff, I was like, oh, this really works. Like actually, so. Sometimes I'll keep those around and use for his style of. So anybody out there trying to do the Eddie thing, try it. Try his picks. It's kind of interesting.
And don't be afraid to try different picks as well. Just because, like with those ones, I wanted to try a thicker pick and I really liked it. Yeah. Some people hate thick picks. I'm not a fan of the very small, like the Jazz 3s, because I always end up dropping them. So I don't feel like I'm holding on to them enough because there's not enough surface area. But yeah, picks is an interesting one.
Did you ever try but just out of curiosity, what are the Dunlop ones that kind of have the round, like they're blue and they're molded and they're sort of thick like that? Do you know what I mean? Like stubbies?
Stubby, I think. Is that similar to...
It's called stubby.
Yeah, I've seen something. So a friend of mine uses like a Jazz 3, but a really fat one. It's like I think it's like the John Petrucci one, maybe. Maybe I'm getting confused between them.
I remember his picks. He's got a signature thing.
Yeah, there's so many of them. You like guitars and amps, you just got to go and try them and just go in with an open mind.
Well, I quite enjoyed the stubbies for a while. They were cool because they had a round, they were almost like conical, but they came to a point. Right. And so they kind of string rolls off the edge in a nice way. Nice smooth. Anyway.
So yeah, I mean, I'll try and find some. You can buy anything in the Chanamisa, so I'll have a look next time I'm there. Yeah. So on the subject of teaching, which I do a lot, and I know you have done as well, I was watching some of the Pete Thorn's 5-minute guitar lessons things recently, and that's a great thing to do for YouTube, is having a short video that's easily digestible. But from I've taught so many different students that are at different levels of younger and older, and they're professionals or they're just starting out, and they're different points on their road. I guess I don't like to say someone better or worse. They're at a different point in their journey. Yeah. But some students benefit from having a small lesson where you can go over the same thing over and over again, and then they can take it home and digest it, like the 5-minute videos, and then they can really get it into their heads and be comfortable with it. And others tend to like to be bombarded with loads of information. I mean, do you have a particular way that you would, if you were, because I'm not sure if you teach anyone directly, but how would you approach that? Would you prefer to give something small for them to pick apart, or a bigger project?
I guess that was I guess I've done both on YouTube. So YouTube for me all started with this how to play Eruption video. That was really the dawn of that I filmed on my 2006 iMac.
Wow.
On the internal camera, and I made this how to play Eruption video, and it really kind of took off, and that was the thing that started my channel actually getting subscribers and stuff like that. Now, it was back in the day when YouTube was 15 minutes only. Like
I remember that.
Yeah, so I had to upload it as 5 parts because Eruption's a lot of notes, and I didn't have any ability to do tab or anything. It was like I split it up over five videos. So, but so there's that. That was a big project where it's like, hey, we're going to tackle this crazy guitar solo. But the 5-minute lesson thing was exactly what you say. It was out of I could film them quickly. It was easy. It was easy on my from my end of like, oh, just one concept. Let's just show one thing. And it sort of coincided with like, Tim Pierce put out a video a number of years ago where he was talking about how it can be overwhelming watching some of these, like a little bit like Ochana Music and go guitar shopping. YouTube and guitar videos. I'm going to sit down and learn something. And there's 4 million of them, and you start, and maybe the first one you pick isn't that great, and the next one you pick, it's cool, but there's like so many things coming at you, and then you end up just sort of putting the guitar away and going away. I don't know if I learned anything. And so what Tim said was just try and get one thing, like one little concept. If you walk away from it with one, oh, that's a cool phrase, or that's a neat technique, or some little thing, and then, you know what I mean, and internalize that. And I really think that makes a lot of sense, to not get overwhelmed. You can also, some people are more organized than others, so you can write down your goals and what you're trying to, and then try and organize it into playlists and all that kind of stuff. But I honestly think, I did teach a lot. I mean, when I was younger, even when I was a teenager, I was teaching like up to 35 people a week. And I felt like my skill teaching was that I could break things down and explain them in a very simple way, that at people's pace, I could sense what pace, as a teacher, everybody's different.
Yeah, you've got to adjust it for each student.
Yeah, trying to explain a right-hand rhythm to somebody, where to attack the string and where not to. You're playing teaching somebody a simple strumming pattern. So you're like, cycle here. Right? So I will tell them to just go like this. Play every strum. Now let's break it up into just, so we're going to go down. Okay, so go down, skip the upstroke, hit the next downstroke, hit the next upstroke after that. Let's get that much.
Yeah,
okay? Down, up. You know what I mean?
It just beats, exactly.
And then I'd break it up into, so now let's go one more downstroke. Let's do that again. Etc. And I'd do this, and then within 10 minutes they'd have the strumming pattern.
Yeah.
But I felt like my ability to break it down into a simple, you know what I mean? And keeping the hand going was the other thing, explaining to people, like, because I see people
always moving.
Yeah, like a pendulum, a pendulum, swinging like a clock. Now, so a lot of people would play that like.
Or they keep their hands down, up, hesitate, or somewhere.
Hesitate, and then it's not smooth. It sounds like that. Oh, that's not what we want. We want, right? And so this is a simple thing that I would teach people, like right off the bat. Now that concept could be absorbed by somebody within 30 seconds or 2 minutes, or sometimes it would be a month of lessons, of once a week, of trying to get them to, they just couldn't quite understand or feel it or hear it or whatever it was, but I would always try and work at the different students' pace.
Yeah, that's an important thing. I think some students worry too much as well, that I can't get that strumming pattern down very quick.
Yeah.
But ironically, to change the subject,
Yeah.
so you played a G chord. That's the first chord I ever played on this guitar when I picked it up in the store years ago, and that was the thing that surprised me the most before I'd even plugged it into an amp. Was I strummed a G,
It's got a great tone, that guitar. Yeah.
and it kept going, and I was
Yeah.
like, I've sold already.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
all it took, and my
Yeah.
wife was really not very happy. Actually, she was my fiance at the time, so she maybe she wasn't too happy about it. But I mean, she still married me, so she couldn't have been that bad.
She got over it.
Yeah, she did.
And now you've still got the guitar.
Exactly.
You know, the other thing, the great thing about a guitar like this is that you got it, and now you probably go and look at other guitars, but you're like, oh man, look at that guitar, I gotta try it. And then you take it down and you're like, it's not quite as cool as my guitar.
Yeah,
right?
all the time.
Yeah.
With that Valley Arts that I played, it was great, but they're very expensive because of how rare they are.
Yeah, and you're like, do I need this? Not
Yeah,
really.
exactly. And then I played recently in the same store. They had number 48 of any Valley Arts ever made.
Oh. Right.
And it was like made in like the 70s. It was basically a Strat. It had the F-style headstock and everything.
Oh.
And it was really cool, but it was more like a historical piece. If I was
Right.
going to take a guitar out to a gig, it would have been this one.
Right.
Easily.
Yeah. You get a good one, and then it's
exactly.
like, and you feel like then this is my instrument, and it lasts a long time.
Yeah,
That's
it. And it's it said it's my number one.
Mm.
So something I asked Nick Johnston when we interviewed him last week, because he does a lot of shows and some of his writing stuff, and he's done so many clinic tours. And I know you've done some clinic tours because that's why you're in Japan. And I know you've played with all like the sideman stuff, as you mentioned, with the other bands and with the classic rock show as well. And that's lots of different things that you've done. How are you preparing differently for each of those things? So how would you prepare for clinic versus doing a classic rock show, for example?
Well, the clinics for me, the first time I ever tried to do guitar clinics, I was kind of terrified. I was like, because it's a different vibe, and I didn't know going into it what it was going to feel like. And you know, if you experience it, it's like sitting in a classroom. It's not like a gig. You're sitting there and everybody's kind of like this, looking at you.
Yeah.
Nobody's having beverages and getting ready for the show and ready for some music, and the lights go down. It's not like a woo. Sometimes, you know, but then everybody is kind of like this, you know. And if you're playing over tracks or you know, just if that's what you're doing, you know, it can be very intimidating. I think it's a different feel than a gig. So you just got to get your head around that it's a clinic and that they're not necessarily bored, or the attendees, you know, or they're not necessarily being critical of you. It's a seminar, and so they're approaching it differently. They want to learn something, and it's more like a serious sort of vibe. So that's a different thing. So for me, to get comfortable in clinics, I realized that I really had to prepare, and that it couldn't be just something where I'd play a couple songs and go, "What do you guys want to talk about?" Because some people do that at clinics, and I've seen clinics like that, and I think it can go well and be okay. But for me, I was like, I have to have an idea and a concept, and I'm going to go in there, and at the end of the hour and a half or whatever, I want everybody to walk out and feel like, wow, that was really interesting. Like I'm thinking about this differently, or that differently. We'll go home and try this, you know, thing or that thing. So with my current, the previous run of clinics I did about 4 or 5 years ago, starting with Sir, I basically went into it teaching how my recording process works. So I brought the PT-15 head, and you know, my signature amplifier, guitar, and I had Logic set up with a little interface, and I actually tracked a song in the clinic, all the rhythm guitar parts and the solos and everything. And I did a little mix, and then, you know, talked about how that works, and then what I do with it afterwards, and that got me into talking about YouTube a little bit, and how, you know, trying to sort of inspire folks to be creative and do their own thing with it. So it was sort of about what people see me do on social media. That was the concept of the clinic, and teaching the process. Because I always get, well, how do you write these songs, and how do you, you know, how do you do your drums?
Sound,
How do you get that sound? How did you, you know, all those things. So I was basically showing that in the clinic, and it was a very, like, you know, dialed in format where it was like I felt comfortable going in and teaching it. It felt like, well, I'm doing what I do in my studio. I'm recording a track.
Just with an audience instead.
With an audience instead. So the current clinic, I decided to do a clinic called Inspired by the Tone. And what it's all about is going way back to when I was a kid, and then moving forward to, you know, modern times. I feel like I get really inspired by guitar sounds. It's part of what I do on YouTube is plugging in a pedal. What does this thing do? Okay, I need to show this in a video now. I'm going to show its strengths. I'm going to try and really get across to the anybody watching what this thing does, so they can walk away from the video and go, oh, have you seen that new pedal from so and so, and they've got a good concept of what it does, but within a musical context, right? And getting inspired by the sound of something, I think, is really interesting, and it kind of ties into getting inspired by guitar sounds of the greats, be it Brian May or Trevor Rabin, who I kind of quote in my new clinic, and different, using different effects, using chorus, using delay, using pitch shifting, using overdrive, using different types of delays. So that's what the clinic is all about, is different types of tones and how they inspire creativity and to play a different way. So I spent a long time preparing the clinic and dialing in, practicing it, and I'll sit there and I'll actually do the clinic by myself, and sometimes film it, and then I'll watch back and critique myself and be like, okay, this part could be a little more interesting, or so it's that. It's a process of generating I'll start maybe a month before the clinic is going to happen, the first one, and I'll start developing it, dialing it in, maybe storyboard it out a little bit, or at least take a bunch of notes and then decide what I want to talk about and format it, and then develop some musical pieces that I can show in the clinic. So it's preparation like that. Preparation for a tour, different thing. So that's, generally speaking, if I'm a sideman and I'm going to go out and play with somebody, or I'm doing a classic rock show where I'm learning just great songs from the past, from Zeppelin or The Who or Van Halen or anything like that. It's the same process really then for those types of gigs, where I'm sitting there learning a certain amount of material every day, programming my pedal board, making the sounds, figuring out what guitars I'm going to need, what amplifiers, formulating my rig and putting it all together. And I'll generally set everything up. So I've got my pedal board in my studio, got my amps there, maybe not with big cabinets, but I've got a couple 112s with heads, and I dial in all the sounds. These days I'm using USB on my pedals, like my H90 and things like that, to get into the editor to make I need this certain reverb sound for the song, or pitch
Just to fine tune it a little bit.
Fine tune it all, route everything, make all my presets. I'm a big fan of, it's just the way my mind works, but I like presets and kind of dialing in my sounds and having specific song presets. So when I go into rehearsal, everything's done, like, basically. All I need to do is maybe tweak some effects mixes and things like that.
Just sit in with the band a little bit.
Yeah, so I do a lot of that work in advance, really prepare. And as far as learning the material goes, that goes hand in hand with dialing in the sounds and everything. I'm dialing in the sounds at the same time. But what I do is I usually take 2 or 3 tunes a day. So let's say you got to prepare 25 songs for a tour. I'll plan it out with enough time where if I do, let's say, 3 songs a day, so I'll do 3 the first day, try to do all the programming, learning the parts, everything like that, get that all done. The next day I'll come in, so let's say that starts on a Monday, the next day I'll come in on a Tuesday, maybe review those 3 in the morning. As a warm-up, because you forget overnight. It's like, how did that go again? Oh yeah. So I'll review those. That might take an hour or something, an hour and a half to review what I did the day before. Then I'll get into learning another 3 that next day. So let's say that's Tuesday. Wednesday, similar thing, review what I did the day before, do another 3. So now I'm up to, by Wednesday evening or something, I'm up to maybe, let's say, 9 songs out of the 25 that I've got to learn total. Thursday, I'll generally take just the day to review, because now I've learned 9 things. I'm going to forget the first thing I did on Monday a little bit. So I spend that day reviewing and dialing things in, making sure all the sounds are good. And then so on and so on and so on until I get to about the 25, And as a guitar player, you want to learn everybody's different, once again, your learning curve and your ability to absorb. So you want to figure out what that is, how much time it's going to take you to learn the things you need to learn to prepare, how much time it's going to take you to get all the sounds together and everything, and then just be cognizant of that and respect that, and then schedule, if you've got, the amount of time, you want to schedule enough time so that you can have everything learned by the time you get into rehearsal. Be prepared. That's how I do things. Not everybody does things that way, but I like to be very, very prepared. Sounds, everything, from day one.
Yeah, which is good. Some people aren't quite as prepared. I've come across that as maybe another sideman, usually a bass player, and they don't do that. But that was one thing I was going to ask. With learning songs, I have quite a few students that they'll go onto Google and they'll type in chords to this Taylor Swift song, and usually it's going to be right because there's not that many chords in it. But if it's something that's a little bit trickier, there's not a lot of moderation with so they might not be right.
Right.
And I always say to the student, there's so many different ways. You can learn it from me, and I'll put in the work. I know that it's correct. Developing your ear is going to be a really useful one. If it's a song that doesn't have anything written online and no one's done covers of it, but there's also covers as well. Watching other people, how do they interpret it, and maybe watching a live version. If it's a song that has a lazy fade out at the end, how are they going to end the song in a live situation?
Yeah.
Or maybe like official music or sheet music if it's been transcribed professionally. But how would you learn a song like that? Would you take lots of different things, or just rely on your ears, or
everything you just said?
Yeah,
I mean, it really is like it's like a fun little. You can look at it as fun. I mean, it's a fun little journey of like it's like cracking a code. And the live videos definitely help, because if you can see a live video and you can see the way where the guitar, they're playing it in fifth position, not in whatever in first position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A certain where the riff could be placed, and you can learn so much from. You ever watch a live video and you're like, please go to the guitar, like this one part, and then you'll see the guitar player's hand for like 1 second in the video, but that might be enough.
Then it goes to the drummer who's just playing something really, really basic. It's like, that's not what anyone wants to see. They're doing the solo,
Yeah. But it's really helpful reviewing live videos. But and then I would just add to everything you said. Like, I mean, going in and look. The first thing is I use a phrase trainer, generally speaking, to learn songs. I won't use iTunes or something because it just is inefficient as far as playing. But so I use a thing called Transcribe, which is it's great. There's many of them out there, phrase trainers, but Transcribe works good. It's $50, I think, from a company called Seven.
It slows down as well.
Slows down. You can loop sections. If you loop a section because maybe you want to practice the solo section, you can actually store the loop. So that you open it up the next day and it's in there, and you can go back and practice just that part when you push this loop button. Very, very useful. And it also allows you to isolate things a little bit. There's a karaoke feature on it kind of that takes out the center, so you can get rid of the vocal. There's an EQ, so you can take out the bass somewhat, and it's very helpful. So Transcribe's been great for years. Kind of part of what's changed the game now too is Moises. And
yes, the AI stripping away the instruments. That's quite. I've seen a bit of I think I downloaded a demo, but I never used it.
Works really good. It's crazy. And then Logic has it too now. So if you're a Logic user on a Mac, Stem Splitter, same thing, and it'll go in and just quickly. With Moises, it takes a minute because you're using the app and it needs to upload it to a server or something, and then it spits it back like 45 seconds later. Well, that's. We're such a
it's we want instant gratification. We're sat there looking at the bar going,
I gotta wait for 45 seconds to get an isolated guitar part.
Shocking.
If you would have told me when I was a kid that we could do these things, it would be like a dream.
It'd be amazing.
But Logic is like literally like you just load it as a track in a Logic session, a song, and just hit Stem Splitter, and it goes like, and then boom, splits out all the stems, and you can then just solo the guitar part or get rid of any parts you want, get rid of the vocal.
Make your own backing track almost as well.
Sorry?
Make your own backing track almost as well.
Yeah.
Take the guitar out and then see how it fits. And that helps with the tone aspect of it as well.
I actually did that for my clinic. So I use Stem Splitter now because I'm playing mostly, it's 4 original pieces that I'm playing in the clinic, but 2 covers. So I use Stem Splitter to split off the tracks, and then in the clinic I'm playing the guitar parts.
Cool.
But it's really cool. But all those... YouTube is a great resource. The original track is, and then the live version's great resources. And then the new Moises Stem Splitter stuff is just terrific for learning things.
Awesome.
So,
we have one more question. So, I was thinking about this recently. Dream gig. Dead or alive, dream gig. For me, it would be to do a show with Dio. That would be an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And also... playing with BB King as well. That would be it. He was the one that made me want to take guitar seriously. So that would be. And I was so upset when he passed because I never got a chance to see him live.
Man, I saw BB with my dad, and it's such a great memory because it was in a small club in Edmonton. I sat right in front of him almost. I was with my father, and it's just a great memory of mine where my dad was really into country music and stuff, and I was into rock and roll, but I love blues too. And my dad and I went to see BB.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's a great memory for me of sitting in the supper club and my dad, I always remember because my dad is a Ford dealer, car dealer, and BB has this song. It's called, I think it's "Paying the Cost to Be the Boss," and the lyric in it is like, I bought you a brand new Ford, and you sit I want a Cadillac.
I think that's How Blue Can You Get?
Oh, is it?
I think.
Oh, maybe it is. But
yeah.
anyway, he said that line right in
Yeah.
that tune, and I look back at my dad. My dad was cracking up because he's a Ford dealer, you know. So I always remember, I bought you a brand new Ford, and he said, "I want a Cadillac." And it was
the next line. What I bought you a $10 dinner, and you said thanks for the snack.
right. Thanks for the snack.
Exactly.
That's the line. Yeah,
I
That's
let
great,
you live
man.
in my penthouse. You said it's just a shack, and the last line was this cracks me up every time. Is I gave you 7 children, and now you want to give them back.
Now you want to give them back.
That's the best. I love that. I love that song. It was a great performer. But yeah, dream gig.
Anyway, so fantastic. Thanks for reminding me about my
you're
memory. But so it's a little melancholy. But I already had my dream gig, which is playing with Chris Cornell.
Okay.
You know? So and I just want to play with him again. Of course, it's not possible. So maybe we'll see him later in another. But it's really is. I never felt more like myself on a sideman gig than that. I got to play. The process for the Chris Cornell audition, learning songs, the whole 9 yards is a very special memory for me. But when I was told I had the gig, it was a really special day. I mean, I remember just having a great callback audition and stuff, and the vibe was great. And then we just kind of knew, and then we got a call an hour later, and it was like, okay, he wants you. We're going to do it. And I was like, I can't believe I got this gig. I can play with Chris Cornell. He's like one of the best singers of all time, rock singers, and it's so like these great songs. And then in my email it was like, okay, so we're starting rehearsals tomorrow, and we're going to send you music every night, because it was sort of under the gun for time. His first dates were like 3 weeks later after that, so it's like we had to learn a lot of material. He wanted to learn songs from Audioslave, Soundgarden, Solo Career, Temple of the Dog, everything. So we were sent, once again, the 3-song thing. We were actually sent 3 songs in our email every night. So we'd already learned about 9 or 10 for the auditions at that point, and then so it said, you've got the gig, that kind of thing, fantastic, and then we're going to learn these 3 songs for tonight and be there at 11:30 tomorrow. And it was like Rusty Cage and maybe like Jesus Christ Pose and Be Yourself by Audioslave or something. And I'd be like, oh, these are great songs. And then the next day it'd be like Say Hello to Heaven. It was just like, I can't believe it. I get like every night I'd get this email. The next morning I got to get up and go play the songs with that guy. And then I'd go home that night, and a half an hour after I got home, it'd be like, these 3 tomorrow. And I'd be like, this is like a dream, man. Like I get to go play all this music with this guy that's like, and it's really him.
It sounds so good.
Oh, dude, it was unbelievable. And then being on stage and just kind of closing your eyes and playing those songs, and you'd look over and he's standing right there, and it's like, and there'd just be at this festival, or we were playing for, download for like 40,000 people or whatever, going to Argentina and playing for all these people, playing the Libers show for like 60,000 people or something in Germany, and then our solo tours, it was theaters and clubs. Those are the kinds of places we play, or sometimes bigger, sometimes an arena show. But it was just like, we were a band of friends. He picked guys that were, we played like a band, and we kind of fought like a band. We hung like a band. We had a lot of fun over those 3 or 4 years. And but he was like, he's the boss, of course, and we never lost perspective of that, but it also felt like a band. We were on stage. He interacted with us like kind of like he never did with his other bands. He was, kind of seen as a serious guy, and very like, in our band, we used to joke around a lot. Like in the on-stage stuff, he'd crack jokes. There's a lot of humor that went on because we just had fun together. And so you sort of saw a side of him that was like different, I think, like when we got to do this, because there was, all the chains were off. He didn't have to cater to anyone. He could do whatever he wanted. Every night we get a new set list that was he created, and you do, at the height of it, maybe 3 years in, I saw the list a little while ago. I couldn't believe it. It was 110 songs long of all of his music, and at any point we could play any one of those. If he said that night he'd pick the list out of those 110, we could play any of those tunes. And it's just this magic time for me. So I kind of did it, and it's a little melancholy because it's like since then. There's all kinds of people I would love to play with, but if you ask me, who would you love to play with? It's him.
Okay, well, that's such a great answer, and I would have loved the chance to play with Chris as well. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, talking about guitars and music and recording and teaching and picks and everything else.
Yeah,
thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you back in Japan again soon.
Hope so. Thank you.
Thank you.